Hello, everybody. Now I'd like to talk with you about peer relationships in the middle childhood time period. This is part 3 of our lectures on psychosocial development. As we've mentioned previously, during the middle childhood years, they begin to spend more time outside of the family home, and the influences of peers and school become greater as the influences of their parents begin to diminish over time. In fact, during the middle childhood years, we see the development of a very specific child culture, where there are habits, styles, and values, could be even leisure activities or interests online that everybody gets involved with at the same time. And this establishes a peer culture that makes things distinct from adult culture. Many times, the child culture is then passed down to younger siblings. During middle childhood, children become increasingly invested in their relationships with other children and begin to value personal friendships more than just being accepted by a group of peers. And it's through these friendships, these true relationships that are reciprocal, that lead to our psychosocial growth and help us not only become healthy adults, but prepare us for adult relationships. Early on in middle childhood, you may notice some gender differences in the way that peers interact. Girls tend to talk a whole lot more and find a lot of joy in sharing secrets with one another as a way to make that relationship meaningful, whereas boys are more likely to engage in less verbal interaction and more active games, or to spend more time discussing and debating the rules of a game than actually playing the game itself. So gender differences can emerge, and those appear to be culturally influenced, and they differ from place to place. Having friends in middle childhood can really help build confidence and help us to become more reciprocal social partners later. And friendship in middle childhood can help us be more likely to have a healthy and happy adolescence. So older children begin to demand more of their friends. In middle childhood, loyalty is a very important thing, and it's less likely that you change friends as often as you may have done when you were in preschool. It's also more likely that you go through some drama when a friendship ends, either because of a disagreement or perhaps somebody has moved somewhere. Or sometimes there's a circle of friends and one person is out when others are in. As these 9, 10, 11-year-olds are navigating these social challenges, they're developing the kinds of social skills they'll need in adulthood to manage not only their social relationships, but their work relationships. Older children, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, may find it a little harder to make new friends than they did when they were 5 or 6, but that's probably because they're a bit more self-conscious and their expectations have raised about what they want from a friend and what they expect to participate in with a friend. And the kind of social glue that is thought to bring children together at this age has to do with shared interests and shared values. Whereas as younger children, we are often friends with children who happen to be the progeny of our parents' friends. In the middle childhood years, we get to select our own friends. And sometimes that has to do with proximity, but it usually has to do with shared interests and values. In the middle childhood years, we begin to see a phenomena where children tend to fall into social clusters of either being popular and well-liked by other children or unpopular or not as highly regarded by other children. In the United States, popular children are often described by the adults as kind, trustworthy, and cooperative. By their peers, they are often thought to be described as athletic, cool, and could be described by adults as dominant, arrogant, or even aggressive. So being popular doesn't always mean you're a good kid. Being popular is a decision that's being made by the peers, and that's the adult's interpretation of what those children are like. So children who make a big impression, even if it's not necessarily a positive one, like an aggressive child, could still be quite popular. To be unpopular means that you are either neglected or overlooked, just somebody that isn't included in things with other children, or you could be rejected because you are likely to be dysregulated or aggressive. Children tend to avoid children who act out or are emotionally intense in the middle childhood years. There are also children who are rejected because they are withdrawn. They tend to either be off on their own world, withdrawn from others, timid, or anxious. And sometimes these children have special needs or have been traumatized, and children in the middle childhood years may not know how to interact with them and therefore don't attempt it, which is what results in a sort of passive rejection. In the middle childhood years is where we first begin to see the phenomena of bullying occur. Bullying is defined as repeated, systematic efforts to inflict harm on another person through physical, verbal, or a social attack. And that other person is often thought to be a weaker person, not necessarily in strength, but perhaps in status. A bully victim is someone who attacks others and who is also attacked by others. This is also referred to as a provocative victim because usually he or she does things that kind of target or elicit the bullying, such as taking something from a bully or provoking them in some way. So bullying is not always a phenomena of a person lacking in social status who is being hurt by somebody of greater social status. Sometimes the same child is sometimes the bully and sometimes the victim. There are different types of bullying. There's physical, verbal, relational, and cyberbullying. What I'd like for you to know about is that relational has to do with when children try to destroy somebody's reputation, try to get other kids not to like the child. That is a form of bullying that tends to be associated with friendships in girls between the grades 3 and 5. And a lot of female adults will talk about a time in their growing up where they were involved in relational bullying. And it can be a very harmful experience and be very difficult to cope with the loss of friends that you previously thought were loyal. And if we try to remember that this is a stage in our lives where loyalty is highly valued and where we are constantly doing social comparisons with others, the experience of bullying can be really devastating. Now, the causes of bullying continue to be studied and are only partially understood. There does seem to be a genetic predisposition, some neurological abnormalities in aggressive children, some of whom are bullies. There are also some studies that suggest that a hostile caregiving environment is associated with bullying behaviors in a child. And the older a child is, and the more their peers engage in bullying, the greater likelihood you have of that child showing bullying behaviors. Now, the consequences of bullying, children who act as bullies actually have lower empathy and social understanding of others. They tend to be lower achieving in school and have relationship difficulties as an adult. There's also an increased incidence in depression for children who are bullies. There is also an increase in depression for children who are the victims of bullies. There are several different interventions that have been tested and rolled out in various schools with a desire to create an anti-bullying culture. What researchers have found is that interventions that only target bullies or only target victims are not effective. In fact, you really need a community-wide or school-wide intervention. And you need to deliver the intervention way earlier than when bullying first emerges. So anti-bullying interventions really need to be happening in preschool, kindergarten, first and second grade. By third grade, bullying interventions are probably too late to work. As these studies continue, evaluation of their ongoing results is really critical. And trying to understand differences in different subgroups of bullies will also be important. It could also be that we need to think very differently about cyberbullying and have to come up with some ways to help children who are vulnerable to identify threats to their well-being and to be appropriately assertive when they feel attacked or feel that somebody is out to hurt them. So I covered a very complex topic in a very short period of time. Please refer to your text for a few more case examples about bullying you may find useful. Thank you for your time and attention, and I will now deliver the fourth and final part of Chapter 13's lectures.